Well, my body lies over the ocean. My body lies over the sea. Ooh, my body lies over the ocean. Oh, bring back my body to me.
Hello and welcome to the Scott Arizala Show. My name is Travis Allison from camphacker.tv. I'm so excited to be here with you and to introduce our host today, Scott Arizala.
Hey Travis, thanks so much. Thanks for hosting. I am super excited about today's episode. We were going to talk about behavior management. And I wanted to take a little bit different of an approach at the beginning. And I wanted to actually give you all a quote. And this is from the founder, CEO of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. And he said, this is about customer service. He said something along that, I'm going to have to paraphrase, but he said something along the lines of, the best customer service just works. The customer doesn't have to call you, they don't have to contact you, it just works. And I loved that because, first of all, it's definitely my experience on Amazon. I know people who haven't had the same kind of experience with them, but I will tell you that my experience with Amazon is it frankly just works. In fact, it works maybe too well. That little one-click now button has cost me, I can't tell you how many hundreds if not thousands of dollars. So it just works. And that is the kind of idea that I want us to bring into camp when it comes to behavior management. And here's how I'm going to link the two. Behavior management, how we're working with kids around either developing positive behavior or dealing with some of the negative behavior that we see, is such a big part of their experience that we do need to think about it as customer service, as a way that we can highlight or heighten their positive experience of camp. The more skills we have about helping them make really great choices, and of course then dealing with the more negative choices, the better their experience is going to be. And I want to frame it in, how can we give them the best kind of customer service? At the end of the day, I want your staff to feel like it just works. It just works. Helping kids through a meltdown, a bad behavior, helping them highlight some of the best stuff that they're doing, it just works. It works to create this really high quality, amazing, positive experience.
So Scott, how do we then take camp and make it into a seamless service that we're offering to these families?
Well, I think there are sort of like a number of like really distinct techniques that we can do to sort of help this. One of the things that I think is maybe the most important is monitoring, or what I call engaged supervision. I think what we forget often as youth development professionals and as young people on the ground is that the more we are present and aware of what's going on, the less opportunity kids have to make bad choices. And the more we can highlight the positive choices. Monitoring isn't about it isn't about hovering. It's not about being a helicopter parent. It's about being involved. It's engaged supervision. One of the hardest, there are lots of easy times to facilitate this, right? Like during an activity, like during archery, it's relatively easy because more times than not, as the adult, you have some sort of role in archery, right? You're going to stand, you're going to watch, you're going to comment about their archer's stance, you're going to cheer every time they hit the target, whatever, right? Like you have some sort of role. During meals, it's another time that's relatively easy to have this sort of engaged supervision. Why? Well, you're there, you're eating, we're all doing the same thing, you're sitting with your kids, whatever. Sometimes it's harder during things like transitions. How do you teach your staff to really engage and sing songs or play games during those times? Unstructured free play is probably the hardest time for engaged supervision, because isn't by definition unstructured free time the time that it's kid directed. And what I always say to that is unstructured doesn't mean unsupervised. Kid directed doesn't mean without or minus an adult. It means kid directed, means you're following their lead. So really engaged supervision is about being aware, being present in the moment, and allowing for kids to do what they're doing and sort of following their lead. So that's one of the big techniques around that I want us to remember when it comes to behavior management.
Yeah, right on. And when it comes to managing behavior, Scott, how do schedule and routine affect that?
Sure. Schedule and routine is really important. I mean, if you think about your life as an adult, your schedule, more times than not, is incredibly important to you. It's something that you have a lot of control over, that you sort of manipulate daily, if not hourly. It's something that you sort of, if you're like me, and I know Travis, we kind of go back to sort of constantly all day long. It's the way I organize my entire business life and frankly my family life. I mean, we have a whole monthly schedule that we keep. There's something about control when it comes to the schedule. And at camp and in a lot of kids' lives, they don't have a lot of control. So a behavior management technique that I think all of us need to use is to give kids the schedule. I mean, it's so simple that at both my camps we have just a little schedule that's about this big that you kind of fold up accordion style, and it's a pocket schedule, and it just says what's going on all the time. It doesn't give away the secret, surprise events and all that kind of stuff. It just gives kids a sense of control to know this is when lunch is, and here's what our unit is doing first period, and then this period is going to be a free choice, and blah 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 blah. It just kind of goes through the schedule. It's an incredibly important technique to help kids feel in control and feel empowered. Routine is also something that I talk a lot about, and it's basically developing procedures and developing sort of systems to do things. A system is sort of a coordinated sort of coordinated tasks that equal some sort of outcome. A routine is when those coordinated tasks become regular or second nature, right? And so we want to create routine for kids, right? We want to have, for example, overnight camps, we want to have a wake up and a bedtime routine. We want to have a getting to meal routine, like here's how we always do it. For day camps, we want to have a drop off and a pickup routine. What are we always doing at the same time? Again, it's about giving kids this sort of sense of normalcy and control in, frankly, kind of out of control environment that camp can be a lot of times. But schedule and routine is incredibly important to keep kids sort of even keeled.
In terms of even keel, I think one of the best things you can do is to make your expectations known to those kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this, in fact, in one of our other episodes this season about just counseling skills. We're creating really clear expectations, talking to kids in an explicit way about what you expect. And here's my suggestion, is sit down with your your various teams, right? And you as a camp director need to facilitate this, but the team can be as small as the 2 co-counselors in a cabin or a group at day camp, right? It can be bigger. It can be like all the kids in the same unit, right? The 5 different cabins in the same unit. It can be like the whole boy side and the whole girl side. It can be the whole camp. But what we do is we sit down together in our teams and we actually spend time developing systems, developing how we're, for example, getting all the kids awake and to breakfast. How we're going to get the kids from breakfast back to the cabin for cabin cleanup. How we're going to go from cabin cleanup to singing songs at assembly. How we're going to break out from assembly and go to all of our first periods. All those have very significant, not complicated, but significant routines, significant systems. And what I want you to do is I want you to go through those things and ask things like, who's in charge on any given day? What's the goal? What's the outcome for kids and for staff? What happens if the plan gets messed up? Just ask some real basic questions, develop a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 step routine, and then be really clear about what those are. Talk to kids about what those are. In the first 24 hours, most of our communication with kids should be explaining the routine. What is going on? Explaining, being clear about our expectations. Okay, here's what we need to do when we wake up. If we want to clown around a little bit during cabin cleanup, then maybe we should start making our beds and things like that as we're doing wake up before we get to breakfast. Can that be part of our routine? Because the expectation is that we have a clean cabin, so on and so forth, and really walking them through what these things are all about.
You've touched on a number of times this season, you've touched on finding the strength in kids and the thing they're interested in. And I want to know how that comes into managing behaviors.
Well, I mean, so a huge technique in managing behavior is called redirection. where, and for those of you who have used redirection either explicitly and you knew it was called redirection, or implicitly because you're good at working with kids, it's this idea of like seeing what's about to happen in a negative way and kind of pointing the kid in a different direction and be like, go over there and do that, or sort of point the energy in this direction and thus avoid the negative thing altogether, right? How do you do that? Well, first of all, you got to be aware of their behavior and all that kind of stuff. But you have to really know what they're good at and what their interests are, right? And so you can, because part of redirection is having like an option for them to go and do. The best options are things that they're either good at or they're interested in. A lot of times those things are related, right? But good at or interested in, that's being strength-based. So it's huge as a technique for redirection, for other kind of techniques as far as managing behavior. Now, the question, I think, is how do we then know what they're good at and interested in? And of course, again, we've talked a lot this season about observation, about being aware of their behavior, about really paying attention to them. Of course, you need to do that. And then I think just be explicit. Ask them, what are they good at? What are they interested in? I'll give you one technique that we just use in my family. My daughter, every single night, and we're starting to do this with my son. He's only 2, so it's a little bit here, it's a little bit above his head, but my daughter, who's 5, every single night, part of our bedtime routine is we ask her, what was your favorite part of the day? Right? And just like it's like a very basic gratitude kind of activity where we say, what's your favorite part of the day? And she goes over and talks about what's her favorite part of the day. What kind of information I glean from that are, guess what? Things she's interested in and things she's good at. Rarely does she say, my favorite part of the day was when I had that meltdown about not being able to have ice cream. Like she doesn't say that kind of stuff. She talks about when she was playing with her brother, when she was playing at school with her friend, doing the art project, those kinds of things. So, now all of a sudden, I start to understand what she feels good at and what she's interested in. So doing some of those kind of activities to start understanding that from kids.
And will all this work, Scott, if you're really overexcited and in people's face and bouncing off the walls?
Maybe. I think I would crush some camp counselors' souls if I said, yeah, you got to calm down a little bit, man. Don't be so excited. So, yeah, I do think that, yes, actually, Travis, you kind of hit on a good point in that being excited and being enthusiastic is very important. But I also want us to be able to calm down particularly about behavior. A lot of times when kids are having particularly negative behavior, we as people who work with kids kind of freak out about it. We kind of go over the top. And what I really want us to do is kind of take a big deep breath, step back, calm down, keep it in perspective, and talk to kids in a sort of metered, calm way, right? It's easy for us to emotionally elevate when kids are being mean to each other, when they're picking on each other, when they're doing something, when they're violent towards each other. It's easy to yell and scream and get super mad. But that's really about you. At the end of the day, those emotions are about you. That's not about helping the kid learn. I can tell you right now, no matter how much you want to argue with me, that you yelling at a kid isn't going to help them learn necessarily any better about how to do something different. You may say, well, it seems effective. Well, sure, it seems effective because they're scared of you and they think you're crazy, right? But that's about you, not about them. Just calm down. And let's take a metered approach at talking to these kids about what it is that's going on and what we can do differently next time.
Well, thanks, Scott, for sharing so many great ideas about behavior management. If people are watching the video, I hope that you will click subscribe just in the button below us. And if there is anything you liked about setting a schedule and routine or setting clear expectations, then please give us a thumbs up. That all helps for getting more exposure to the show and getting more camp staff to understand some of the ideas that we're talking about here. My name is Travis Allison from campacker.tv, and I thank you for watching.
Yes, thank you all so much. My name is Scott Arizala. You can find out more about what I do at my website, which is thecampcounselor.com. I've also just launched a brand new staff training resource and membership service called the Camp Counselor Insider that you can find at thecampcounselor.com/insider. And in there's a ton of content on staff training, including MP3s of our whole first season. So please check that out. Thanks again for watching and tuning in. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you all next summer.
Well, my